People reveal everything in seconds. You've just been too blind to see it. Fix that and you stop getting played and start controlling every room you walk into. No headings, no bullet points, no chapter labels, no repetition, no filler, no cliches, no greetings, no in this audiobook phrases 100% original, non-copyright, cinematic, high retention pacing, feels like a $100 premium audiobook hook instructions. Start with a brutal, emotionally aggressive 30 to 45-second hook. First sentence must hit hard and attack the listener's identity, expose their weakness in reading people, trigger insecurity, missed opportunities, social failure, then immediately promise power, the ability to read anyone instantly. No slow intro, no warming up. Core content direction. The script must teach how to understand people instantly using a blend of psychology, neuroscience, and real-world dominance. Include human behavior decoding, microexpressions and emotional signals, body language dominance, reading, voice tone, analysis, eye contact psychology, social hierarchy awareness, power dynamics, in conversations, hidden intentions detection, emotional intelligence, weaponized cold reading techniques, pattern recognition in people, lie detection basics, subconscious signals, deep psychological layers, identity rewiring. Listener transforms into observer/reader of humans. Dopamine control, stop distraction, increase awareness. Anti-procrastination, discipline, fear immunity, no social fear, no hesitation. Mental toughness conditioning, emotional control under pressure, deep focus and awareness training, social dominance training, how to control conversations, how to command respect silently, how to read status instantly, how to spot weak versus dominant personalities, how to influence without speaking much. Practical exercises, daily drills for observation, eye contact training, voice control practice, silence, usage training, public awareness challenges, real life social reading, exercises, structure flow. Start aggressive to build curiosity, to drop insights, to escalate intensity. Every 5 to 7 minutes, a powerful realization moment. Every 10 minutes, increase emotional intensity. Use storytelling throughout real life scenarios, social situations, power dynamics. Create open loops constantly to keep listener hooked. Emotional triggers. Shame, you've been blind to people. Regret, missed opportunities, manipulation by others. Competition, others are reading you while you're clueless. Respect, power comes from awareness. Control, you gain social control. Status, you rise above average people. Legacy, you become unforgettable. Language, simple American English. Short plus long sentence variation. Conversational but intense. No academic complexity. Ending instructions. End with a cinematic, viral level closing monologue. Challenge the listener's identity. Force immediate action. Make them feel like staying the same is unacceptable. Leave them with urgency, power, and a new mindset. Ending should feel like a movie climax, not a summary. Goal, listener must feel transformed, more aware, more dangerous, more disciplined, able to read people instantly, ready to dominate social environments and take control of life. Your life has already been decided in rooms you didn't even realize you were being judged in. While you were talking, laughing, trying to fit in, someone across from you was reading you, measuring you, categorizing you, weak, average, forgettable, and the worst part, you didn't even know it was happening. You think people tell you who they are. They don't. They leak it in microseconds, in eye tension, in hesitation, in the way their voice cracks when they pretend to be confident. You've been surrounded by signals your entire life and you've been blind to all of them. That's why you've been misunderstood. That's why you've trusted the wrong people. That's why you've walked into situations thinking you were in control when you were already losing. Because you never learned the real language of humans, not words, signals. And today that changes because once you see it, You can't unsee it. Once your brain locks into this level of awareness, people stop being confusing. They become predictable, transparent, exposed. You stop reacting. You start reading. You stop guessing. You start knowing. And that shift, that's power. Right now, your brain is lazy, not because you're weak, but because you trained it to be distracted. Dopamine fried your attention. Social media shortened your focus. You look, but you don't observe. You listen, but you don't hear. And because of that, you miss everything that actually matters. Two people walk into a room. One sees faces, the other sees dominance, hierarchies, insecurity, intentions, alliances, threats. One lives blind, the other controls the environment. You already know which one wins. Understanding people instantly is not magic. It's pattern recognition under pressure. It's training your brain to filter noise and lock onto signals that never lie. And here's the uncomfortable truth. People reveal themselves in the first 10 seconds, not through what they say, but through what they can't control. Watch their eyes, not casually, intentionally. Confident people don't stare, they hold. There's a difference. A stare is aggressive and unstable. A hold is calm, grounded, controlled. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't break under pressure. Weak eyes flicker, they scan, they look away too fast or too often, not because they're shy, but because they're calculating how they're being perceived. That's insecurity leaking out, and now you see it. But don't just look at the eyes, look at the timing. Timing is everything. When someone answers a question instantly, that's often truth or a well-rehearsed lie. But when there's a slight delay, a fraction of a second, where their brain scrambles before speaking, that's where things get interesting. That gap, that's where reality and performance collide. You've seen it before, you just ignored it. From now on, you don't ignore anything. You observe everything. You walk into a room, and instead of thinking, do they like me? You ask, what are they revealing? That one shift alone separates leaders from followers, because followers seek validation. Leaders extract information, and information is control. Let's go deeper. Body language isn't about obvious gestures. Anyone can fake confidence for a few seconds. Anyone can stand straight, smile, pretend. But the body always betrays the truth over time. Look at the hands. Hands are honest. They're harder to control than facial expressions. When someone feels dominant, their movements are slow, open, relaxed. They take up space without forcing it. When someone feels threatened or insecure, their hands tighten. They hide, they fidget, they overcompensate with unnecessary movement. Too much movement is not confidence, it's leakage. And once you see that, you start spotting it everywhere. The guy talking loudly, trying to control the conversation, watch his hands, watch his shoulders, watch the tension in his neck. That's not power, that's fear wearing a mask. Real power is quiet, controlled, efficient. Now listen carefully because this is where most people fail. Voice, not what people say, but how they say it. Tone reveals intention faster than words ever will. A person can say, I'm fine, in 10 different ways. Only one of them is true. Your job is to hear the difference. Confidence sounds grounded. There's weight behind the words. No rush, no need to prove. Insecurity sounds fast, slightly higher pitched, unstable. There's a subtle need for approval hidden in the tone. And once your brain tunes into that frequency, conversations change forever. You stop getting fooled by words. You start decoding reality. Now here's the part that will make you uncomfortable. You are just as readable as everyone else. Every insecurity you try to hide leaks. Every doubt shows up in your hesitation. Every need for approval echoes in your tone. Right now, someone better trained than you could read you in seconds, and you wouldn't even notice. That should bother you. Good, because that discomfort is the beginning of awareness. And awareness is where power starts. From this moment on, you're not just learning how to read others, you're learning how to control what you reveal, because the highest level of this skill is not observation, it's invisibility. You see everything, but they see nothing. That's dominance. But before you get there, your brain needs to be rebuilt because your current state, it's too noisy, too distracted, too reactive. You can't read people if your mind is jumping every 2 seconds looking for dopamine. You need stillness, sharp, controlled awareness. So here's your first drill. Starting today, every time you enter a room, you do nothing for the first 10 seconds. No phone, no talking, no reacting. You just observe who's leading, who's following, who's trying too hard, who's completely relaxed. You don't guess. You watch. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your brain will want to escape. That's your addiction to distraction fighting back. Ignore it. Stay still. Because in that stillness, patterns start appearing. And once you see the patterns, you can't go back. Now let's open another layer. People don't behave randomly. They follow predictable psychological loops. Everyone is driven by one of three core forces: the need for approval, the need for control, or the fear of loss. Every action, every reaction, every decision traces back to one of these. When someone talks too much, they're usually seeking approval. When someone interrupts constantly, they're trying to assert control. When someone hesitates, overthinks, or avoids eye contact, they're afraid of loss, loss of status, respect, or validation. You don't need them to explain themselves. You read the pattern, and once you identify the pattern, you can predict behavior. That's where you stop reacting and start anticipating. Imagine knowing how someone will respond before they even open their mouth. That's not manipulation. That's awareness at a level most people will never reach. And you're stepping into it right now. But here's the twist: the more you see, the more responsibility you carry. Because now you can't pretend you don't notice weakness. You can't ignore fake confidence. You can't unsee insecurity. You either use this skill to rise or you let it rot while you go back to being average. And average is exactly where you said you don't want to be. So now the question is simple: are you ready to actually see people? Or are you going to go back to being blind? Because what comes next will either sharpen your mind into a weapon or expose just how undisciplined you really are. And we're just getting started. You think you're observing people. You're not. You're reacting to them. That's the first weakness that has to die, because the moment you react, you lose control. Your brain shifts from analysis to emotion, from power to submission. And the other person, whether they realize it or not, feels that shift instantly. Control is never loud. It's internal, silent, precise. Right now, your nervous system is trained like prey. Something happens, someone looks at you a certain way, says something unexpected, challenges you, and your body responds before your mind even catches up. Your heart rate shifts, your tone changes, your posture adjusts. That's not awareness, that's conditioning. And until you break that, you will never read people accurately because you're too busy being affected by them. The highest level observers don't just watch people, they remain untouched by them, cold but not emotionless, controlled but not stiff, present but never pulled. That's the state you're building. And it starts with this realization: your emotions are not signals to obey, they're signals to analyze. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is to react, defend, prove, push back, wrong move. That reaction gives them data about you. It shows your triggers, your limits, your pressure points. You just exposed your blueprint. From now on, you do the opposite. You feel the emotion, but you don't express it. You pause. And in that pause, you observe them instead. Why did they say that? What are they trying to gain? Control, attention, validation? Every aggressive behavior has a weakness behind it. Every. And if you stay still long enough, you'll see it. That's where the power flips. Now let's go deeper into something most people completely misunderstand: confidence. You've been lied to about what it looks like. Confidence is not loud. Not dominant in the obvious sense, not aggressive, not trying to win every conversation. That's performance. Real confidence is indifference to outcome. And that changes everything about how you read people. Because when you don't need anything from the interaction, your perception sharpens. You're no longer filtering reality through desire. You see what's actually there. Most people walk into conversations with an agenda. Do they like me? Do I sound smart? How do I impress them? And because of that, they miss all the signals. You don't. Your only objective is to understand, and that makes you dangerous. Now focus on this because this is where your perception level jumps. Micro tension, not obvious tension, micro. The jaw tightening for half a second, the slight inhale before answering, the subtle shift in shoulders when a certain topic comes up. That's where truth hides. People can control their words. They can control their expressions for a few seconds, but they cannot control their nervous system consistently. And the nervous system always leaks. You just have to be trained enough to catch it. Here's how you start. When you ask someone a question, don't just listen to the answer. Watch the reaction before the answer. That first half-second response is raw, unfiltered, real. This is how interrogators work. This is how elite negotiators operate. They don't chase information. They create space for it to come out. Now let's talk about something that will change how you see every social situation. Hierarchy. Every room has one. Always. Even if no one acknowledges it. There's always someone leading, someone influencing, someone being watched more than others. Your job is to identify that instantly. Who speaks and others listen? Who doesn't need to speak but still controls attention? Who interrupts and gets away with it? Who gets interrupted and accepts it? That's the map. And once you see the map, you understand the game. Most people walk into a room and try to prove themselves. You don't. You study the hierarchy first because power doesn't come from effort, it comes from positioning. If you understand who holds influence, who seeks it, and who avoids it, you can move strategically instead of emotionally. And here's where it gets even more precise. People reveal their position in the hierarchy through subtle behaviors, eye contact direction, body orientation, who they laugh at, who they ignore, who they try to impress. It's all there. Nothing is random. Now I'm going to give you something that most people will never even think about. People don't just communicate with you, they perform for their own self-image. And once you understand that, you stop taking things personally. The guy acting dominant, he's performing dominance because he needs to believe it. The person acting uninterested, they're protecting their ego. The overly friendly one, they're seeking approval. You're not the target. You're just the mirror they're using. And that realization frees you because now instead of reacting to behavior, you decode it. And when you decode it, you gain control over how you respond. Now let's sharpen your awareness even further. Patterns over moments. Anyone can fake a moment. No one can fake a pattern. Stop judging people based on single interactions. Start tracking consistency. Does their confidence drop under pressure? Does their tone change when certain people enter the room? Do they act differently depending on who they're around? That's where truth lives. Consistency reveals identity, and identity predicts behavior. At this level, you don't need long conversations to understand someone. You need sharp observation and pattern recognition. Seconds, not hours. But all of this requires one thing most people don't have: discipline of attention. If your mind is scattered, you miss everything. If your focus is weak, you see nothing. That's why this skill isn't common, not because it's complicated, but because it requires control, and control is rare. So here's your next drill. For the next 24 hours, you stop being the main character in your head. You become the observer. Every interaction, family, friends, strangers, you watch. not in a creepy way, in a controlled, intentional way. You track tone, you track pauses, you track reactions. You don't judge, you don't interfere, you just collect data. At the end of the day, you'll realize something that will hit harder than anything else. You've been missing everything. And once that awareness hits, there's no going back. Because what comes next is where this stops being a skill and starts becoming a weapon. And if you thought what you've learned so far was powerful, you haven't seen anything yet. Now you're going to learn how to break the illusion completely because everything you've observed so far, eye contact, tone, posture, that's surface level access. Useful but not enough to dominate. To control interactions, you need to understand what drives behavior before it even shows up. You need to see the code behind the person. Every human you meet is running patterns, not randomly, not creatively, predictably. And the fastest way to read anyone instantly is this. Stop looking at what they're doing. Start asking what they're protecting. Because every personality is a defense mechanism. Confidence can be protection. Silence can be protection. Humor can be protection. Aggression can be protection. And once you identify what someone is protecting, you understand them faster than they understand themselves. Look at the overly confident guy. Loud voice, strong opinions, dominating conversations. Most people see strength. You don't. You ask, what is he protecting? If you watch closely, you'll see it. He avoids being challenged directly. He talks over people instead of engaging. He controls the frame because he's afraid of losing it. That's not power. That's fragile control. Now look at the quiet one. Doesn't speak much. Observes, stays in the background. Most people assume weakness. Wrong again. There are two types of silence. One is fear-based. The person wants to speak but holds back. The other is control-based. The person chooses not to speak because they don't need to. Your job is to tell the difference, and the difference is in their presence. If someone is calm, you don't come in aggressive. You match stillness and create trust. People trust what feels familiar, and when they trust, they reveal. But here's the key, never mirror fully. Always stay half a step in control. You're not blending in, you're guiding. That's the difference between manipulation and leadership. Now combine that with pacing. Every conversation has a rhythm. Fast talkers, slow thinkers, reactive speakers, controlled communicators. If you disrupt the rhythm, you create pressure. If you control the rhythm, you control the interaction. Slow your speech slightly. Pause intentionally. Let them adjust to you because the person who sets the pace sets the frame, and the frame is everything. Now we open another layer. Lie detection, not the fake dramatic version. Real, practical detection. Forget everything you've seen in movies. Lies are not about obvious nervousness. They're about inconsistency. Mismatch between words, tone, and body. Someone says, I'm not worried, but their shoulders tighten. Someone says, I don't care, but their tone spikes slightly. Someone says, I was just busy, but there's a delay before the answer. That's not proof of lying, that's proof of conflict. And where there's conflict, there's something hidden. Your job is not to accuse. Your job is to note patterns, because one signal means nothing. Three signals, now you're getting close to truth. This is how professionals operate. They don't jump to conclusions, they build cases. Now let's sharpen your edge even more. Emotional control under pressure. This is where most people collapse because it's easy to observe when everything is calm, but when tension rises, when someone challenges you, disrespects you, tests you, that's when your training is exposed. Right now, you still react, maybe less than before, but it's still there. That needs to disappear because the moment you lose emotional control, your perception narrows. You stop seeing clearly, you miss signals, you become predictable, and predictable people are easy to dominate. So here's the shift. Pressure is not something to avoid, it's something to use. When tension rises, you don't rush, you slow down. When emotions spike, you don't match them, you neutralize them. Calm is dominance in chaotic situations, and people feel that instantly. The person who stays composed when others lose control automatically becomes the center of gravity. That's who people follow, that's who people respect. Now we take it even further. You don't just read individuals, you read groups, because group dynamics reveal more than individual behavior ever will. In a group, people drop masks faster. They fall into roles: leader, follower, challenger, observer, entertainer. And once you identify roles, you can predict interactions before they happen. Who will speak next? Who will agree? Who will resist? Who will try to gain attention? It becomes a system, and systems can be controlled. But here's the part that separates average from elite. You don't force control, you allow it. You position yourself in a way that influence flows to you. You speak less, but when you speak, it lands. You move less, but when you move, it's noticed. You react less, but when you react, it matters. That's efficiency, that's precision, that's power. Now, let me bring you back to something uncomfortable again. All of this means nothing if you don't apply it. Knowledge without execution is just another form of weakness, and you've had enough of that. So here's your next level drill. For the next 48 hours, you do three things. First, every conversation you identify what the person is protecting, not guessing, observing. Second, you control your reactions completely. No unnecessary emotional responses, no impulsive talking. You pause, you choose. Third, you use silence more than usual. Let people fill the space. Let them reveal themselves. And at the end of those 48 hours, something will shift. You'll stop feeling socially uncertain. You'll stop overthinking interactions. You'll start seeing patterns instantly. And once that switch flips, you don't go back, because now you're not just in conversations, you're above them, watching, analyzing, controlling. And what comes next is where you stop just understanding people and start influencing them without them even realizing it.